Hi, I'm Madison Torio, and last month I released a new collection of paintings titled Wandering. Today I'm going to be diving in a little bit deeper on two of my paintings in the collection, Lost But Not Deserted and Beach Dreams. Lost But Not Deserted was the first oil painting I ever started, and at 27 years old, I already felt behind. After I got laid off, I started taking oil painting classes, working on this desert landscape over the course of 10 weeks. Finishing this painting reminded me that I could still learn new skills and continue growing in whatever I put my mind to. Despite the deserted landscape I had painted and how lost I felt career-wise, I'm grateful that I never felt alone. Betting on yourself and saying goodbye to a corporate safety net can be really scary. I know that without my friends and family supporting me, it would have been infinitely scarier. I may feel lost at times, but as long as I have my people around, I know I'll be okay. I took the reference photo for Lost But Not Deserted when I was actually on a camping trip with some friends. We were there to support one of my friends who's a photographer, and she was working on a new project and we wanted to help out. We actually did a little road trip to the San Diego mountains, which that was my first time ever going there, and it was beautiful. I mean, everywhere I looked was a painting in and of itself. And I found myself, in addition to helping my friend with her shoot, just taking a lot of photos of the mountains and the landscapes I saw before me, and just thinking that like they would be really fun to paint. I had actually just signed up for my first round of oil painting classes, and so in the back of my mind, I was kind of taking reference photos to potentially bring to that class. I ended up choosing the reference photo that I did because I liked, in my head, the simplicity of it. I thought it would be easier to paint than some of the other photos that I had taken from that weekend because it was just really wide open, clear blue skies. And then I thought that the desert mountains looked somewhat easy to do. I mean, it was just like shades of brown. But I think when I actually started painting it in my classes, I realized how much depth there was to it and how many different shades of brown there were. And I almost had a hard time simplifying it because I wanted to capture every little detail in the photos. So what I thought would end up being like a very simple landscape to paint ended up taking me like 10 weeks to complete. My painting classes were once a week, so I would pretty much only work on this painting during those classes. I would bring it in every Wednesday and I would chip away at it. I really enjoyed my painting classes because it was a little less structured. It was kind of an opportunity to work on your own stuff, and the instructor would just come around and help wherever needed and answer any questions or give advice. And I think that's a really great way for me to learn personally because I came in not necessarily a beginner, but definitely a beginner at oil painting specifically. Although I had some painting experience prior, it was really nice to get his tips and tricks. Like I said, this painting took me 10 weeks to complete, and I think one of my biggest challenges with this painting was knowing when to stop. I mean, it's my first ever oil painting, so I learned a lot about oil paints and how to mix color, and I even learned some tricks about how to like create depth or how to make something look a little less two-dimensional and just to have a little bit more depth to it. Even though the mountains and the rocks were a lot more difficult to paint than I had initially thought, I think they ended up being one of my favorite parts of this painting. Another thing, simple as it may seem, I love the sky, and painting this really taught me how much I love painting a beautiful blue sky. Being able to blend the smooth, buttery oil paints, it's very different from gouache or watercolor, which is what I was used to prior to beginning these painting classes, and so getting to practice that blending technique was really fun for me. I actually had fully intended to name this something different. I think it was just going to be like Desert Rocks because I couldn't really think of anything more creative than that. But just before launching my collection, I just didn't love the name. I felt like it was too simple, and I felt that like the emotional attachment that I had to this painting, it being my first and it having taken me so long, I wanted it to have more depth in the title than it did. I really stared at this painting and did kind of what I had talked about in my last video about counter offer. I just kind of played word association with myself and thought of different things in the painting, and I was thinking about desert and deserted in kind of the sense of like a noun but also a verb. I love a double meaning. I talked about it in my last video. I love a double meaning, and I liked the concept of feeling deserted but not actually being deserted. And in this painting specifically, hi Hi, baby. I was thinking about how I had taken the reference photo and intentionally kept all people out of it, and I wanted it to just be the desert landscape, when in reality behind me there was probably a dozen people, lots of photography equipment, outfits, cars, like so much going on. And I thought it was kind of cool that from my perspective it was a deserted landscape, but just behind me were like a bunch of my closest friends and just like so much activity and so many things going on. But because of where I decided to frame it, you can't tell any of that. So in a way, Lost But Not Deserted was kind of a hint to the fact that like it looks deserted, but it's not. It also spoke a lot to my mindset at the time that I painted it, where I was just barely conceptualizing what an art career might look like for me. And I had just left behind a career in child development. And so in that way, I was feeling a little bit lost in my life, but I also socially and in my personal life was the most full my cup had been in quite a long time. I think I just felt so much more like secure and confident and settled in an amazing friend group. I had just moved back in with my parents, so I had familial support around me at all times. And the irony of having like a deserted landscape when I, in my personal life, felt so fulfilled and was so well taken care of that I may be lost, but certainly not deserted. I feel the most at peace when I'm by the water, listening to the slow rhythm of the waves. Beach dreams represents all the time I've spent daydreaming on the sand, figuring out what my ideal future looks like. With wispy clouds that look as though they could float away, and sand dunes that may slide or crumble, it's a place to dream freely without needing to be rooted in reality. One day I'll be leaving the beach to pound the pavement, just maybe not today. I took the reference photo for Beach Dreams because I was noticing how just light and fluffy the clouds were looking, and I thought that it would be really fun to paint and to try to challenge myself to capture that level of like wispiness. I also just love the beach. Anytime I'm at the beach, I feel compelled to capture the moment in some way. But I remember I was having like a particularly contemplative day that day on the beach. I painted Beach Dreams all in one sitting. It was the second oil painting I had ever started, and I actually completed it before I completed Lost But Not Deserted. I think because Lost But Not Deserted was taking so long, I needed something that was a little bit more instant gratification. I had a feeling one night, it was like 9 p.m., and I just really was craving to challenge myself artistically. I had heard that you can paint oils wet on wet all in one sitting, and it's known as alla prima. And I wanted to give that a try because I did love that with oils you can like let it dry and fully paint over top of it. But the hard thing with that is it takes so long to dry that there is a lot of downtime between painting sessions at times. I am a very patient person until I'm not. And I just like wanted to try and create something all at once. Recorded it all for TikTok. I've actually posted it on Shorts if you want to go check it out and see the whole beginning to end process with timestamps. I also went into this painting wanting it to be a lot looser. Like I was saying with Lost But Not Deserted, it ended up being so detailed in a way that I wasn't really expecting. And I wanted to kind of give myself another go in a similar type of landscape, similar color scheme, just trying to be as quick and loose as I could with the limited oil painting experience that I had. I think this entire painting took me about 3 hours to complete, so it was kind of like a fun little blip in the timeline of Lost But Not Deserted. These are another two paintings that are very fun for me to compare because they are aesthetically kind of similar, but timeline-wise, such different timelines to complete and different processes. One was much more meticulous and detailed, and the other was much quicker and softer. And I think they both turned out so fun. I really love Claude Monet. I feel really inspired by his work, and my favorite thing about him is his softness, his wispiness. It just gives such like a dreamy effect to his paintings. It's definitely a style that inspired Beach Dreams a lot, and I have some prints of his work in my studio and in my bedroom that I look at all the time, and I definitely think that that had its influence in this painting, especially with the clouds. I came up with the name Beach Dreams pretty quickly, I think because of everything I said about the influence by Monet and just like the dreaminess and wispiness of the clouds. I kind of wanted something about dreams or dreaminess to be a part of it. And then beach dreams just sounds good together. It's succinct, it's quick, it's to the point. And aesthetically, the words are also kind of similar. Like they both only have EA as the vowels. Visually, I think they look nice together. I think also conceptually with beach dreams, I just love daydreaming on the beach. It's like one of my favorite pastimes. And so it just made a lot of sense for me to title this Beach Dreams. I learned so much from painting this piece. I think it taught me a lot about my capabilities. I think being able to paint something that I ended up loving so much in one sitting, and this was the first time I had ever accomplished that with oil painting. It also taught me that oil painting doesn't have to be this super long, tedious process, and that I can complete something all in one sitting. It also taught me a little bit more about like planning, I think, because when you're painting wet on wet, you have to be a lot more intentional with where you place your paint. With this painting, I couldn't just paint the entire blue sky the way that I did with desert landscape and then, go in and do clouds over it, because if I'm painting white paint over blue, it's going to mix together. Piecing things together a little bit more like a puzzle where I'm kind of painting sections at a time and then lightly blending between them. I think that just taught me a lot about the technique, and I learned so much about a different way of painting than what I was being taught in my classes. I've actually combined these two paintings with Looking Up to create a bundle on my site. You can buy all three for a slightly discounted price than it would have been to buy each of them separately. I titled the bundle To Blue Skies to kind of have a few different meanings. I almost titled it Cheers to Blue Skies or Here's to Blue Skies, to kind of symbolize optimism in a way, looking to blue skies, kind of the concept of looking up, but in a slightly more general sense. Kind of a similar sentiment to the sun will come up tomorrow. Things may be gray and cloudy for a period of time, but you can almost always guarantee that blue skies will come eventually. I feel whenever things are feeling a little bit pessimistic in my life, I'm always thinking about the blue skies to come. And I feel these paintings really help embody that, and I hope that when people look at any of those paintings in the bundle, that it does help make them feel a little bit more optimistic or a little bit calmer or a little bit more at peace with these big open blue skies beckoning you. I hope these paintings remind people that no matter how bleak things may feel, you can always look to blue skies.